Hey, what is up, guys? I know this will probably never happen, but Logan Paul recently stated interest in fighting in the UFC after boxing match with KSI. Dana White is interested. Is he? I mean, do you really want to see Logan Paul in a MMA fight? Because if you think about it, he was a top 5 wrestler in Ohio State. So, would the UFC be very interested in this guy? I mean, if they match him up with the guy with the same similar background, similar style, and somebody with the same similar skills, he probably would win. He probably would do some damage and hurt somebody and win. I'm not saying the dude's gonna be a badass. The dude's gonna go off and be the UFC champion. But if you say Logan Paul can't do nothing, well, why do they have CM Punk come into the UFC and try to do something? CM Punk didn't do nothing. Even in his first fight, he gets choked out. In the second fight, he did very decent at best. I'm not even going to say that. And if you had Logan Paul versus CM Punk's losing again. CM Punk doesn't have any athletic ability, just he has a famous name. The same thing, and guess what? Logan Paul sold 800,000 pay-per-views on his very first fight versus KSI, which is a YouTuber, right? He sold the same amount of pay-per-views as George St. Pierre versus Michael Bisping. Would this be a great fight, a great interest in the UFC? They probably could make a hell of a lot of money, I guarantee you that. And the UFC right now is all about making money fights. And reading a comment on this statement that Logan Paul put out, a person writes, as much as I'd like to see Logan Paul get his face smashed in the octagon. However, it would be a slap in the face to all amateur fighters trying to get in the UFC to get a contract. And that is true. People should accept that everyone has their own opinion. CM Punk is not a wrestler. CM Punk did not do high school wrestling. He didn't do college wrestling. CM Punk was just a guy who did professional wrestling. That's a different avenue than like a Brock Lesnar or somebody like that who actually was a Division I champion. I'm just reading the comments right now. It says, Logan Paul would get destroyed by flyweights in the UFC. It's the elite of the elite. It says, fair enough, Logan is an athlete beast. They all are in the UFC. Logan Paul might have been an athlete, but his boxing skills versus any guy who's been training for a year or 2 years at a high level in a MMA gym would smoke Logan Paul, bar none. But if the UFC wants to make some damn money and a cash grab, they definitely would put on that Logan Paul fight. Because if the Dana White is interested in him and the UFC knows they can make a lot of money off this guy, which they definitely will, they'll probably make easy. They could probably make 500,000 pay-per-view buys easily, because he's got a lot of massive fans that would pay a lot of money to see Logan Paul in the UFC. I guarantee you he's one of the biggest YouTubers with like 16 million subscribers, getting almost 1 million views every video. He sold 800,000 pay-per-view buys, so the dude knows he can definitely bring in some money and some eyeballs, and that's what the UFC is all about now. They're wanting some eyeballs because they want to get big fights, because the only guy who brings in big money and big fights and big pay-per-views is Conor McGregor, and they definitely realize that somebody like a Logan Paul, which is a celebrity, which is somebody who has trained a little bit of decent boxing, he has Division I college wrestling, can do something, and he could wrestle somebody to the ground. Will they match him up with somebody who can beat him? I don't know, because a lot of guys, even at his level of MMA, shouldn't be in the UFC. But Logan Paul has stated he's interested in competing in the UFC. I will say this, if Logan Paul really wants to compete at a high level in MMA, I don't really give a damn what his social status is. You take your ass to the amateurs and work your way up. Or you go to like WEC or some other smaller organization that you might be able to make a name for yourself. But I know Logan Paul is one of those guys who would say, haha, I'm not going to this other local small organization. It's a UFC or nothing, because he doesn't know probably Bellator or anything like that. But when he was naming off a lot of fighters during his press conferences and his build up to the his boxing match, it seems like he watches UFC and he knows his fighting. He knows his fighters. But as always, guys, let me know what you guys think. Is it a guy that should be in the UFC, a guy that should never fight in the UFC, or is he a guy that you guys like, yeah, he can go in the UFC and make a lot of cash, and the UFC would definitely pay him because he would bring in a lot of money? But to me personally, I think he does not deserve to be in the UFC. What I seen in his first amateur boxing match was very decent at best. He had a good jab, but that was it. He's not going to be able to be grappling with somebody and wrestling with the high-level grappler and high-level jiu-jitsu guy and not gas out. He might be ripped, but that's not good as a fighter. Being muscular, that's not good for a fighter. Look at Demetrius Johnson. Look at Nick Diaz. Look at BJ Penn. They're not ripped-ass fighters. But Logan Paul wants to compete in UFC. I highly doubt this is going to happen. But if it does, I won't be shocked, because the UFC does need cash grab money fights. So as always, what do you guys think? Logan Paul to fight in the UFC? Yeah, okay. No!